Okay, now. So passive cybersecurity is a failure, given that the security threat landscape has evolved dramatically over the past few years, and the attack surface has increased. Security operation centers do not work the way they used to work in the past. Managed security providers, in the opinion of many security leaders, are a waste of money, and they probably need to change the way they run their operations. For too long, the conventional thinking for information security has been to plant people at consoles and have them passively wait for an alarm. But all that has changed. So when an alarm goes off, they are supposed to react and stop the attack. Whether this is done internally or through a managed service provider, the end result is the same: passive approach to security. All that has changed immensely. And we now talk about having a more proactive stance in terms of security of operations and proactively responding to incidents and making sure that the organization has the least amount of mean time to respond to incidents or prevent incidents. My name is Farooq Naiyer, and I'm the Chief Information Security Officer. And I have an interesting topic that I'll be talking about today, which is build your SOC and put the right skill in the right seat. I have an amazing panel with me today. So what we'll do is that we'll start off with introductions, and I'll let the three amazing panelists introduce themselves and talk about their experience as it relates to SOC. So I'll start off with Natalie.
Thanks, Farooq. Hi, everybody. I'm Natalie Journeay. I'm a director in Deloitte's Cyber Intelligence Center, which is a managed security service we provide for many clients across Canada. I have been part of the SOC for 6 years, and I've had the privilege to help build it up and watch it grow. It's been an incredible experience, and as all of you know, in cyber, the growth rate is straight up. So, it shows no signs of stopping, which is pretty amazing, but I'm pretty excited to be here today to talk to everybody.
Thank you, Natalie. Trish.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Trish Villanueva, and I'm the director of the Cybersecurity Operations Center at Scotiabank. Currently, under my portfolio, we have our Global Incident Response Team, or our SOC team, as well as threat intel and data loss monitoring for the bank's global footprint. And I've got a bit of experience managing security operations centers in my previous life, and so super happy to be here.
Amazing. Sarah Qureshi.
Hi, I'm Sarah Qureshi, founder and CEO of QSI Security. My experience with SOC has been from multiple different angles. I have helped companies build their internal SOC and get external help building out an outsourced SOC or just plug and play an existing SOC. And in my past life, I used to support a SOC team by augmenting it with my forensic investigation capabilities.
Thank you. Panel, I think, and we have got lots of demos in terms of your background too. So it's going to be an interesting discussion. So right off the bat, I think the first area that I want to talk about is best practices around building up a SOC, and what are the do's, what are the don'ts. So I think I'd like to probably place the question to Natalie first in terms of what's your take on this in terms of best practices.
For building up the SOC, I guess, in my experience, if you're just starting to build it up, you're going to need some focus, because if you kind of try and walk in and say, we're going to do everything, to start, it makes it very difficult. And I think that, start small, get your focus. If you're going to go with the base, maybe start with your level 1, 24/7, level 2, and start building content. Like get some engineers, get the bases covered, and then start specializing. Once you kind of perfected that part, and you can branch out into other more specialized areas, right? Like research and development and hunting and, whatever else that you want to expand into. But, I think you have to also figure out what skills you have to start with. So you have some people there, right? You're building this thing. What are those skills? You've got to build off those first, right? And I think that, if you try to do too much all at once, it might be a recipe for disaster.
Exactly. So step by step and start small and then grow the model organically, right? Okay, amazing. So Trish, I'd like to bring you into the conversation, given that you are a director of a SOC of a leading Big Four bank in Canada. Just walk us through some of the best practices that you think that worked in your experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe this is coming from me, coming from one of the banks, but number one, think about what your requirements are, whether it's regulatorily, audit requirements, certifications that you need to have as an organization. I think that's going to give you a really good baseline, as Natalie mentioned, as to what are your low-hanging fruit that you need to really identify. And in that process, doing your homework ahead of time, making sure that you look at this regulatory requirement, this PCI requirement, this other requirement can all be met with a single, uh, documentation, a single piece of process, a single background check on your analyst, whatever it may be, will give you an idea of what you can tackle right away, and give you a jumping off point. As Natalie said, take it slowly, do your research, focus on training, documentation, and communicating effectively.
Amazing. Rightly placed. Amazing. Okay, so Sarah, you've been a CISO in the past, you've been a security leader in the past, and you're running your own security company now. So you bring along a diverse experience. So what in your experience worked out in terms of best practices of putting together a SOC?
Great question. So I basically use the same approach for a lot of my engagements, not just SOC. If a business doesn't understand their risk priorities, they create blind spots. Doesn't matter whether they build something net new from the ground using resident staff or brand new talent that is part of the team, or they outsource it. So initially, what is your risk? Find what is the risk that you're mitigating by bringing in a SOC or building up a SOC for yourself. It may not be right for you to build it for yourself at all. It may be completely a waste of time if you are spending too much time creating something that isn't efficient, isn't effective, because you're trying to go for the cheap and cheerful just to get a check mark. So what I recommend to people is understand exactly what it is that you're trying to achieve through it. I have seen companies spend a lot of money blindly with third-party hosted SOC environments where it's just throwing incidents over the fence. And once it's here, they just wash their hands off it completely and the risk remains. That's where I think everybody needs to take a little bit of accountability and go back to their contracts and go back to the service provider to see what is the service they're being provided. Because I will be blunt with you, in security world, we are taking a lot of liberties. A lot of us companies are taking liberties with what our clients do not know. So what we do is we sell them something, and if they don't ask for the right skills, they don't ask for the right rule configurations on your SIM, they don't ask for the right blind spots to be corrected. Some of the companies do the bare minimum to deliver the services according to the whatever is written in the contract, but not necessarily mitigating the real risk because you don't even see it, you don't communicate it, and you don't really address it through building up a SOC. So I can go in tangents in many directions here, but I won't take too much time. But what I would say this is educate yourself as the person responsible for taking accountability and ownership of building out a SOC for your organization.
Amazing. So yeah, hitting some really hard-hitting points around knowing your environment, having an awareness about your risks. Trish had a really good point about having a good understanding of your regulatory requirements. Natalie spoke about starting small and building the whole environment organically. And I mean, to sum it all up, I mean, SOC is not just tools and technologies. It's a combination of people, process, and technology. And most often, organizations do rush into going for an MSSP or just buying a tool without even understanding the journey or even understanding the maturity level, or perhaps even understanding or building the foundational pieces. And the foundational pieces relate more to the processes and the people aspect. And since we're going to be talking about the people aspect, I'll be diving to that point now. But before I go into my next question, just a few things. So this panel discussion is part of the Canadian Women in Cybersecurity Conference. So hashtag choose to challenge and hashtag we are cyber. Do talk about this session on social media channels and as well as on the Cyber Exchange platform. And if you have any questions, feel free to type them out on the chat window. Now let's talk about the people aspect. And one of the first few things I want to talk about is how do you go about finding the right talent? And the reason why I'm asking that question is that you can buy all the right piece of technology or probably subscribe to good MSSP providers, but if you don't have the right talent to run your SOC, you can't run it, right? Unless you're living in a fully automated world or and all that, and we can have a discussion about MDR too, but I don't want to go into that direction. We all have our opinions about that. But let's talk about the things which are necessary in finding the right talent in terms of the competency, in terms of the soft skills, in terms of the attitude, in terms of the background. So Natalie, let me start off with you. What are the key skills that you would look for when you're going to be hiring somebody in your SOC team?
Yeah, that's a pretty important question. I guess the first thing you need to know is what am I looking for, or is there what particular skill set am I looking for? So there's step one. So great, you can get 100 resumes with people with that exact skill. Fantastic. Now, part two is after you go through the process and the interviews and everything, are they a fit for like maybe culturally within your organization or whatever it is? Are they a fit for you must know where you're going, right? So if you look down the road, I want, to go from this point to this point in growth in my SOC. Is this person going to come along the journey with me? And do they want to? Are they passionate about it? So just having the skills, great, you have the skills, but that's only a part of it. I wouldn't even say that's 50% of it, because it's an essential piece of it, but it's also what else you bring to the table. And as far as your passion, your dedication, your drive to get up in the morning and make things happen. And you want those kind of people in your SOC, because they've got to come on the journey with you, because I don't think that anybody's interested in just staying exactly where they are, right?
Exactly. Okay, thank you. So Trish, what do you look for when you go about looking for the right talent? And just want to add another spin to it. So what would you look for in an experienced resource, and what would you look for in a fresh out of the college or fresh out of the university resource? What are the things that you would look for?
I think it's a very thoughtful question, and I'm going to give a kind of hopefully a thoughtful response to this question, because it is important. And depending on the kind of SOC that you're building for an MSSP, it's a different skill set, because you're looking at a whole myriad of technologies that you may need to become subject matter experts on. Whereas me in the bank, it's one SIM or two, maybe three, right? Like there's not going to be 5 or 6 different things that you can really sink your teeth into. So in that perspective, I don't know necessarily that focusing specifically on technical skills is the way to go when it comes to bringing on SOC talent. From my perspective and kind of my philosophy about it is, what are your critical thinking skills? What's your drive, as Natalie mentioned? What are the components of you that you're bringing to the table? I tell my team all the time, the technical stuff I can teach you. There's all kinds of courses, there's LinkedIn Learning, there's online resources that are available to so many people, free, paid, in person, digital, whatever it is, right? So those are skills that we can develop together based on where the organization is going with our technology. What I can't buy, what I can't train you on is the drive and that curiosity, that critical thinking. Can you take something that you do for fun, as a hobby, gaming perhaps, maybe you're a big sports advocate or whatever it is, and taking those lessons that you learn through those other experiences in your life and applying them to problem solving within a cyber context. That skill, I think, is the future of security operations.
Mhm. Amazing. Yeah. Yeah, I think we need to look for people who have the passion, who have the drive, because uh, working on a SOC, especially when it comes to L1 and L2 support, can get monotonous too, right? Looking at the screen
Yeah.
now that, so yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
and
the other
and
aspects.
sorry, Farooq. I don't
Yeah.
know if I answered your question about high level talent and low level talent. I think, there's value to be seen from folks that want to skyrocket to the stars immediately, and then there's people who want to just find something comfortable and work on their stuff. I think, piggybacking on what Natalie said, finding the right fit for your team. Do you need somebody to help push? Do you need someone who can be more of a rock for the organization? Those are the kinds of things that we look for. And in terms of seniority, for me, really, then that becomes the breadth of experience that you bring. The more experiences that you've had in a professional capacity, regardless of cyber, the more senior, in my opinion, because you can draw on those experiences.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, amazing. So yeah, let's add another spin to this question for Sarah, because I mean, as I said, Sarah has been on both sides of the table. Uh, when we talk about a SOC team, there are various aspects to a SOC team. You've got threat intelligence, you've got DevOps, you've got incident response, then you've got, of course, L1, L2, and L3, which is within incident response. Then you have a component of forensics too. Now, given the amount of diversity you need to have in the SOC team, uh, what would you look for when you're looking for talent when it comes to various competencies and backgrounds for a SOC team?
Right. So I'm going to answer your question slightly differently. There is a step that is before you go shopping for the right talent. And if you miss that step, I see what we have created in many internal SOCs in large companies, regardless of time, budget, and resources available. And that is overwhelming one resource with skills that are supposed to come from 5 people. And we just put it all on our L1. We're like, you know what? Here's your 14-hour shift. And while you're not doing anything, here's a project. You can create this, respond to this component of RFP. Thank you very much. So what I have to say is the responsibility is not at the moment when you're shopping for talent, but take a look at what you've created in terms of expectations from different roles in your SOC. Like you just mentioned, there's forensics, there's threat intel, there's expertise, right? Often what we do is we take one security student and we're like, welcome to L1 Life. And here's 5 million things. You should know them in your first co-op term of 4 months, and good luck. You're live with customers and take whatever incident comes your way. And if there's ransomware hit, there is some insurance to give you comfort at night. So we do weird things to L1s by overwhelming them with all sorts of responsibilities. So the goal, if you are going to create an efficient SOC, is first build a segregation of duties and give clear path and roadmaps to individual roles and responsibilities within your SOC. So you would find the right talent if your job description isn't looking for a daytime pen tester, nighttime incident response person, also a forensic investigator that is training to be what's the other new fun term we've got, threat hunter.
Mhm.
So if you're looking for 4 people in one, obviously you're not going to make a lot of headway, and you're going to have long queues of incidents just sitting in your SOC and not getting resolved, but getting closed.
You mean, Sarah,
Sorry,
your site is not full of unicorns? Is that not how it works?
I shouldn't tell all these truths, the painful points about InfoSec industry, but it just happens to be our reality because there's not a lot of people in a SOC. Usually the security teams are so lean, and IT infrastructure could be 300 people. And if there are 7 security people, everybody's like, oh, wow, you have a big security team. Well done.
Amazing. No, I think that's you hit on the right notes over there when you talk about having more specialized resources. And for a SOC, you definitely don't need jack of all. You need specialists. You need people who are specialists or specialized in various areas, or perhaps who can be trained for those specific areas too. Because in my
Agreed.
experience, I mean, I have often trained people on job who were fresh out of the university and with their were L1 resources, and we worked on an on-job training thing. Whereas if you go towards more sophisticated roles within a SOC, you need people with a specific uh, competency and of course qualifications and experience too. So rightly said. Now, I have another question, and feel free to respond to it, and anybody can choose to respond to it. And that's more around uh, the training and certification piece. Now, most of the certifications that were being offered in skills related to SOC in the past were offered by various brands of network security service providers, or uh, or big brands of SIEM solutions like Fortinet has their own certification, so does QRadar and all that. And then various threat intelligence companies also have their certifications. But as of recently, we have seen organizations like SANS and EC Council and some other certification bodies who have bought in certifications which focus on SOC itself. So, what's your take on that, and how do you see that whole training and certification landscape evolving in terms of the requirements? So, yeah, so open question.
I can answer that from
Yeah.
the last time I had to create roadmaps for an internal SOC team that was in existence for over 10 years. And the analysts had zero training in addition to when they were first trained academically and whatnot. So SANS training for SOC is not called SOC training per se, but there's a lot of incident handling related training through SANS. That's been there for a long time. And it's actually really, really good when you combine it with your chosen solutions vendor training. So a combination of two will make you an expert in the technology, but at the same time, you need to have the know-how, the overarching methodology of how to handle an incident as an organization. So it builds a team that shares that knowledge, that works together in cohesion.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, to kind of bounce off of that idea, a lot of times people ask this question of me as to how do I get my foot in the door? What certification do you want me to have in order to get this interview? And uh not to make you the only black sheep here, Sarah, but I don't really look at certifications. I come from full disclosure, I don't come from a technical background. I went to school for English of all things, and I kind of fell into cyber as so many of my peers do and so many of my colleagues do. And and realistically, you should pursue those certifications once you really have an idea of what your path is in cyber. The more vendor agnostic, we'll call them, certifications such as SANS incident handling and incident response capabilities, perhaps even some ITIL project management stuff, as well as incident management from just a network operations perspective, will give you the framework for which you're going to base the rest of your specific chosen technology, your specific SME area moving forward. And so in terms of getting your foot in the door, if that's why you're asking, then I say, look for keywords in the posting that will help you uh, bring a little bit of that experience to light. However, don't pursue certifications for the sake of getting those letters at the end of your signature. I don't know that necessarily that's the right approach.
And I wholeheartedly agree with that last statement. I think, it's one thing I can go and write an exam and pass it. It doesn't mean that I can actually put it into everyday use. So I think, and for your, whether you're pursuing, specialized training from Splunk or Fortinet or CrowdStrike, whoever you're talking about, or you're going through SANS, I think with the people that you're working with, and even for yourself, what is my path, right? Which is, Trish, you mentioned, like, where am I going? I'm just going to do all of these crazy courses, which, by the way, are very expensive, and especially when you're talking about SANS. And and I'm just going to go do a million certifications, but what am I actually focused on? And I think it's important for in your team, in your SOC, or whatever you're building out, what is that path and what would actually be relevant to help you do your job better, and sort of focus on that. So you don't need 14 certifications. Maybe you only need 2. Maybe you need none. But if you're really passionate and really want to grow and learn certain things, let's not hold people back. If they want to get those certifications, fantastic. But is it relevant to where you're going and what you're doing? I think the question.
Yeah, and you mentioned how expensive it is. Absolutely. I may get a slapper on the wrist for this, but let me pay for it. Let the organization pay for that specific training, right? Like
Yeah.
you guys go out there and get that basic understanding of triage and incident response. And then if there's a $20,000 training, why not let the organization pay for it?
Yeah. Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that certifications uh, are not a showstopper, but I mean, would surely be a good addition to the skills. And what you look for is the right attitude and the right skills. And possibly these certifications that we're talking about could be more like on-job training or on-job certification. Like once they are on the job and you feel that they need that additional training or that additional uh, test to the to the competency that could add on to. So yeah, that's good. Yeah, and the reason why I was talking about that was that I mean, organizations like SANS and EC Council have now specialized certifications. Like EC Council now has a certification called Certified Threat Intelligence Analyst. I do serve on the advisory board, and one of the things that we are working on is to make sure that the content is more relevant. They have a certification called Certified SOC Analyst, which is also in its infancy. And what I've seen in my experience of working with certifications, that even certifications evolve over a period of time. Like if you look at ISACA certifications and IC Square, they have evolved over the period of time. So I think these certifications would evolve. And I think to Sarah's and Natalie's point, I mean, SANS had certifications on incident response for the longest time. I think they are continuously working on evolving them. And of course, I mean, if anybody can afford them and the organization is willing to sponsor those people, they can do that too. But I think, but the clear message right now is that it's not going to be a showstopper. People will still get the job in the SOC team if they have the right aptitude, the right attitude, and to some extent the right skill set too. Okay, so let's change gears a bit and let's talk about third parties. Now, I've yet to see a SOC which has all the right talent. I've yet to see one. So I think Trish was talking about unicorns. I've yet to see a SOC like that that has all the right talent, instant response, forensics, threat intelligence, DevOps, all those things, and I've yet to see that. So that's where the third parties come in. That's where specialized resources come in, MSSPs or third party service providers or staff augmentation, whatever you want to call that. But let's talk about the fact that organizations who rely on third party for triaging and incident response. So, and I would like to push the question to Natalie first, because you are running a service organization and you do provide services around security operations center, and I believe you guys are also an MSSP too, right? So, what are the I mean, so we spoke about the skill set, but what are the key aspects you look at from the people component when you are managing multiple clients, and how do you go about retaining the right talent in your organization and also making sure that you're able to retain the customer too?
Big question. Okay, so I mean, obviously, first of all, I think MSSPs are the greatest thing and the way to go, but I could be biased. So how do we get all the?
You weren't supposed to say that.
No, but you know, there's two ways that you can go about it with an MSSP. I mean, we can simply augment what you already have, or we can be the entire thing for you, whatever you're looking for. So it could just be little bits and pieces of the different things that we do. But how do you get the right people and retain those people and make sure that we're retaining clients as a result, which is bread and butter. But it's tough because I think part of retaining people is making sure that we put them first, right? So yes, it's a business. Yes, you have to make money to survive. Yes, you have to bring in new business and new clients and all of those things. But it's pointless if you don't have people because you can't support it. So putting the people first is key. And then from a retention, I think people have to know what their path is. Is there a path? Do they see one? Or am I going to sit in here as an L1 for the rest of my life? Or do I actually understand, and is it laid out for me what my potential paths are? There should be more than one. because people might want to go in different areas, and maybe it's outside of the SOC. It doesn't matter. But I think that, you have to support people. They have to feel supported. They have to feel like they have room to grow. If I feel I'm in a dead end job, I'm not going to be there for very long. So I think that's really important to do, and also to build a sense of community with your people, and which is, by the way, really difficult right now. But it's important to stay as close as you can, and do things that are fun, that are not just, hey, I need this thing, and hey, there's a deadline, and oh, look at this breach, and but do things outside of work, for people that want to do that, virtually, and cocktail class. I'm all for that. But think just things like that to build a sense of community, and help people relieve a little stress. And I think it's just really important to support them and make sure that they know they have a path with you, with your team.
Amazing. So Trish, I'm not sure that if you guys do outsource some of your SOC tasks to anybody, or there's any kind of SOC augmentation. But if you do so, what would you look for when you're bringing that company or on board, or any resources from that third-party company?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mentioned briefly earlier, in my previous life, I used to be on the MSSP side. So being on the other side of the table now has just been fun in so many ways. But, I appreciate the challenges that MSSPs have, certainly. And there are definitely advantages for an individual analyst to go for an MSSP versus directly with with a company's internal SOC. And so appreciating that and knowing that you're going to get a different kind of talent on the MSSP side is something that we have to be very conscious of, right? Some of the people that love multitasking, strive well under stress, the MSSP environments for them, and they look at the bank like boring, right? And I know, because I used to be there. I thought that before I got here. And so, but some of the challenges that we see with MSSPs, and especially true of our bank, is that how well can you really get to know our environment, right? And happy to have an open dialogue with my peers here, is how do I get assured that you know enough about my environment to be able to triage appropriately? And that's a lot of that initial conversation, right? Like, do I want dedicated analysts to our service, or do we want that tribal knowledge amongst other organizations to come across, right? Beyond that, and then I'm going to go back to this as well, because it's a bank thing, but what are my requirements for data protections? Do they go across borders? Are there privacy requirements that I need to be mindful of? Is there data that I cannot send to my MSSP for privacy reasons, for regional reasons? Am I in the GDPR that I have to be conscious about sending over information about employees, about customers, about systems, whatever it may be, right? And so, those are some of the immediate challenges. What is the bank kind of approach on it? Is to really have those mindful conversations. And like I said at the beginning, be aware of what our requirements are, whether they're driven by regulatory or internal reasons, whatever they may be. Have I articulated that to my MSSP? Are they able to address it directly with specifics, and not just, a high level plan or a high level understanding of what our requirements are? And can we see a partnership moving forward?
Yeah, and that's key, right? Because and you bring up, the data residency and all of that, and part of it in an MSSP is it's tough to make sure that you have enough people that are cleared, that have the security clearances that you need them to have, because it takes time to get them, and so that's certainly a challenge. But I think building the partnership is key. I think it has to be built on some kind of trust. If you're going to a third party, you have to trust them, because they're holding some of the keys that you really need them to make sure that things are well locked down. But I think that's a key point for sure.
Amazing. So you guys highlighted a really interesting aspect about data residency and privacy. I think that's a really key thing, given the fact that we live in a country where privacy is taken really seriously. And the bank that you work on or work in, Trish, also operates in jurisdictions which has got strict uh, privacy and regulatory requirements too. So, Sarah, I would like to bring you into the conversation and probably add another spin to this question about uh, the opportunities and challenges associated with farming out certain tasks and SOC activities to offshore service providers?
Firstly, can I just take a moment because I haven't had any other platform to complain about MSSPs that do provide SOC. I just want to say that imagine having 5 to 10 different clients, and one is paying you $1 million a month, and the other one is paying you $10,000 a month. Whose incident are you going to handle with more care, with more excitement? So what I've noticed is you have to pick a SOC provider that kind of fits your own profile. So no offense to anyone, but the way it kind of goes is that the bigger fish gets the better food when you go become a client with an MSSP. So in response to your question about offshore, I think it is the natural progression because of how costly, and I hate to say this, but it's so costly to have high quality service in this part of the world when you're talking about a large number of hosts, a lot of monitoring, a lot of data. Yes, AI and ML are assisting, and all that added help from technology is helping people actually understand how to respond to these incidents in a more efficient way with a lean team. But I have to say, I myself am working with an organization on moving things where a lot more can be done in a more cost-effective way, which is just becoming a natural request from customers who don't have a lot of money. They want to build out their business, they want to build out the technology. Those still take a higher priority than having visibility or SOC help them with the incident response. Does that answer your question, Farooq? Sorry, I was in and out of it.
No, to a great extent. Do you also want to weigh in on the data residency challenges and yeah, regulatory compliance challenges around in privacy and all those things?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Canada is right now still with all the fun that's happening with monarchy. We are still okay to host data that needs to be. I know it's a lot of fun with monarchy. There's still we can rely on places like UK for keeping our data there, or in Canada. And now I'm working with 2-3 organizations who are making a very conscious effort to bring their data centers for cloud hosting environments within Canada. So they're trying to make it efficient by taking some of the duties of maintenance of those environments outside the country, but the data resides here. That's just the beauty of being able to work remotely with confidence and with the right secure communication channels in place. That's just how I think the world is going to work in future. We're going to rely, even if it doesn't feel right, we're going to rely more on external resources helping us with our security posture.
Amazing. Thank you. That was really good. Okay, so moving on to the next aspect of today's discussion, given that the theme of the conference is Canadian Women in Cybersecurity, and we have been talking about diversity and promoting diversity, let's talk about a few examples of how you guys are facilitating diversity in your organization, especially within your SOC team. So if you can just walk your audience through some of the key aspects of how you are facilitating diversity in your teams, that would be really good. So I'd like to start off with Trish.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've thought about this question a lot, and I've polled a lot of other leaders in this space as to how they're doing it. And I think, the onus needs to be on us as the organization because we're the gate here, right? And so from my perspective, in terms of enabling diversity, I look back at the job description. I look back at the request that's being posted out there, right? There's a lot of research being done about whether people are responsive to certain types of job descriptions, if they have the right acronyms or whatever that they have in their resume, so that to help the AI find the resume in a pool of 1 million candidates. But part of it, and we've talked a lot about that soft skill drive that people bring into it. what I say is, remove some of those acronyms from your job postings. Allow for those conversations to happen in the interview on a person to person level, so that you're not bogged down by that stuff. There's a lot of people who are hung up on whether or not they have a background in something. I know I did, certainly. And if it wasn't for the individual who had looked at my resume and said, you have no relevant experience, but I like the talk of your jib, you know, I wouldn't be here today. And part of my mission so far in driving leadership is looking at people who have that drive, who have that passion, by removing some of the overtly technical requirements in our job descriptions and really looking for that fit of it. One of my most um, my favorite stories that I've brought somebody over would be someone who is, in the middle of their career, that perhaps is in an older demographic than is your standard right out of university, right out of college student, right? May not necessarily be a millennial, and has been told that they're too old to do a tech job or something to that effect. And for that person to take that chip on their shoulder and really drive that home, that has been some of the most rewarding relationships that I've built in my security operations team. And certainly I'm sure that if you open up your job descriptions in the same fashion, you're going to find all of these wonderful people that didn't have the acronyms but have the drive to get them.
Amazing. So yeah, Natalie, I'd like to bring you into the conversation, but I'd like to add another caveat to my question, and this is more around the fact that Deloitte, like the other Big Four firms, is known for a great work-life balance, and for specifically for females and all that. So, and you have a pretty interesting wallpaper promoting Deloitte's stance on women in cybersecurity and diversity. So, can you just walk us through in terms of how your organization is promoting diversity and how you're helping people with diverse backgrounds, especially women, in terms of working in your SOC team?
Sure. So yeah, so obviously a massive campaign going on right now. I think it'll be launched next month for a global campaign to help bring in more women in cyber. So a lot of effort, a lot of being put into that. Honestly, it's quite a massive exercise that's going on right now to get that going and to get more women in here. But even behind the scenes, things that you don't see that happen internally in Deloitte, a lot of training, a lot of talk about bias, unconscious bias, how to recognize it, how to get rid of it, and even if you think you don't have it, maybe you do. But so there's a lot of that, and making sure that, when for those of us that are out there, whether it's our human resources or talent teams or yourself that's interviewing, making sure that you are a clean slate, that you're not worried that there's this person that's mid-career trying to break into tech and you're like, well, what are you doing here? That you literally, like, everybody gets the same opportunity. So there's a lot of things like that going on in the background at Deloitte to try and make sure we erase all of those things. It doesn't matter where you're coming from or what gender you are or who you're with. Just like, look, can you do the job? Are you going to help us move forward? Like, you're hired, and it has to be literally on that level when you're looking at candidates.
Preach.
Perfect. Yeah. So, Sarah, I would like to get your opinion on promoting or facilitating diversity in your SOC team. What's your take on that?
So I know I was joking about the question earlier, and I told you I don't celebrate Women's Day. I don't celebrate diversity just to highlight women. So the only bias I have is if somebody comes in with their resume and they were a robot, I would probably be like, no, let me hire a human instead. That's the only bias I would employ at this point. Having said that, diversity to me is just inviting all sorts of people, because when you're trying to solve a problem, you want different minds attacking the same problem, thinking, a diversity of thinking, not of gender, because that's just one way of looking at the species, one way of looking at humanity. Diversity of thinking could remove ageism, sexism, just about any kind of bias you have, to just cut right through and see, okay, how do we help this person either grow, or how do we help this person retrofit into something and maximize their capability to get the job done? And very secretly, I'm mentoring a lot of women from different walks of life to in future join me with my company because they're not ready today. And I would rather just kind of help them on their existing paths to find a pathway into security. So that's a very secret agenda of mine, and I'm just going to continue to work on it. In about 5 years, you'll see a lot of women in a cybersecurity firm in GTA.
Amazing, amazing. And I think mentoring future security professionals is a really good way of giving back to the community or the community of practice that you come from. So yeah, really encouraging words from your side, sir. So yeah, so since you spoke about robots and automation, my next question is going to be about that. So thanks for highlighting that aspect of robots. So uh, we hear a lot about automation. We hear a lot about AI when we talk about SOCs and SIEM and MDRs and all those things. But how do you think that that automation and AI is playing a role in evolving the role of a SOC and also evolving the role of people in the whole equation of a SOC? So Natalie, I'd like to get your stance on that, given the fact that you guys are in the business of an MSSP and also provide such services. So how do you see that changing?
It's changing it quite a bit. You know, if you look at landscape even from just a few years ago, it's changed quite a bit. I think that, you know, some people have a fear that it's replacing people. It's not. I think what it does is it takes the more low level, certainly more menial, repeatable tasks and you know removes that from your people so that they can actually focus on something better. To me, it's a great thing because, you know, if I'm sitting there looking at, oh, false positive, oh, false positive, you know, I'm going to probably go crazy in about, you know, 2 weeks if that's all I'm doing. Let the automation deal with that part and let me get on to something more interesting that I actually could provide value in, you know. So I think it's doing a lot of great things for the industry, honestly.
Amazing. Okay, so Trish, your take on this, and would you also like to talk about what are the skill sets that would be required in a SOC environment which is automated or has an AI component to it?
Yeah, you know, AI automation, I'm very proud to say that we're part of an organization in Scotiabank that has put actually a lot of emphasis and a lot of uh, uh, research into automation. And, you know, walking into this situation, I was surprised to see the amount of automation of our SOC practices that had already been done when I came into this role. So, bit of a shout out to my peers on that side. But at the same time, you know, what I've been speaking about this whole panel about driving those critical thinking skills and some of those soft skills is in a full appreciation of the coming future of our automaton overlords. And so, you know, I love what Natalie said. Let the robots do that thing and
Mhm.
let people do what we're good at, which is thinking outside the box, finding different kinds of solutions to problems, and even something as what could be, you know, jokingly said as like putting on your tinfoil hat. Robots can't do that. I do it all the time. That's what keeps me up at night and it's part of my job. And so I sit here and I think of all the possible scenarios where something could go wrong and we plan for it. And that's how slowly we build that resiliency in our organization. And so to kind of answer your question, going back to that critical thinking skills, being able to apply knowledge from one area of your life. Maybe it was you used to work as a bartender. And how can you apply that knowledge into what we're doing today based on your experiences and what the people's reaction to it was? That's something a robot can't do.
Amazing. So Sarah, do you see robots and automation killing SOC related jobs in the future?
Killing people's job in future?
Yeah.
Absolutely, but it is not supposed to be a person's job to sit through 1,000 incidents and pretend that they're big data experts and they have the bird's eye view. It's inhuman. You're not supposed to put that responsibility on a human being to say, okay, this is the incident you react to. Yes, it was a false positive, but react to it anyway. So it is not the responsibility of humans to do the job of a computer. So where you're going to bring those in?
I'm sorry, let's put Maddie on mute. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Jordan, can you just put Maddie on mute, please? Sorry about that, guys. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I like your point about letting all the inhuman stuff being taken care of by the robots, and let the humans do what they do best, right?
Right. So 3 years ago, we were at DEF CON in Vegas, and there was a competition where multiple teams had to prepare and create their defenses and protect the environment fully automated. They were supposed to be hands off as soon as the competition started. So every single malware, everything that was thrown at the environment had to be mitigated without human interference. And one of the teams at Carnegie Mellon, I believe they were the ones that came ahead and they won that competition. If you guys look in DEF CON archives, you can probably find it. So maybe more than 3 years ago, we saw a demonstration of completely hands-off intervention only by the systems and mitigation technologies that were put in place to react to all the things that were thrown at a network. So the technology is there, the human capabilities, the academic environment is ready to train people for that environment. It is just a matter of slowly progressing to that stage, because it's just kind of like going from gasoline powered cars to electric cars. There's a lot of know-how and a lot of political influence and socioeconomic reactions to this transition, right? It will be very similar, but because now we're going to put almost everything online, you are just going to have a lot more experiences over the internet than you did traditionally in the physical world, only because in parts of the world where it is impossible to socially distance, if somebody is going to avoid an interaction, they're going to get an alternative online. So now with all the traffic increasing, IP6, all the IoT devices completely bombarding the world of internet, and we've got 5G, we've got advancements in infrastructure. With all that happening, if we don't automate the very fundamentals of protecting your network in an automated fashion, we are going to be looking at as an anti-advancement of our organization. We're going to be on the short end of the whole conversation. If we're not ready for this transition, it's kind of like people who were not ready for the internet to be in use in people's homes every day. So it's the same kind of thing. Put on your hat to move with the advancement in technology, and then you have a better chance than resisting it.
Amazing. Good. Okay, so we're almost at the tail end of a conversation, and one of the things that I really want to talk about is retention. So in my experience, what I've often seen is that it's a mammoth of a task when you go about hiring a talent in a SOC team, but it's almost impossible of a task when you need to when you go about retaining talent, or when you have to retain talent. I mean, the turnover rate in the security industry itself is quite high, and when you talk about SOC teams, I mean, these are sought after resources, and lots of skills in the SOC area are niche skills. So how do you guys go about retaining talent in your team and making sure that uh, they they love their job and they stick to it, and they're not losing interest? So Trish, I'd like to start off with you.
More money. No, I'm just kidding.
She's right,
Sure.
though.
Yeah,
I'm kidding,
absolutely.
but also I'm not kidding. We have to be very conscious of the value of our employees, especially when it comes to pay and benefits, right? Certainly, those are motivating factors for a lot of people getting into cyber, right? There's a lot of people who are like, well, I'm in cyber because there's no job losses in cyber. Well, great. So you're looking for stability. Can I offer you that stability? Can I offer you what you're looking for, and whatever it is that's motivating you? Um, in terms of retention, I'm a big proponent of gamifying work and gamifying, especially operations. Um, People underestimate their competitive nature. Even if you seem to be, somebody who stays behind, doesn't play a lot of games, you don't play a lot of team sports or competitive sports. However, when you start to turn it into a more fun, interactive experience, that's when we really kind of see that people are enjoying what they're doing, and that's when you get the best work product out of your employees, is when they're having fun, they're enjoying what they're doing. It also facilitates a whole lot of conversation, because what did you get on this, and here's how I got to this answer, what did you do on it, and yada yada. It's been a lot of fun. And I saw a question kind of in the chat about how do you drive those soft skills, how do you find out about them. Maybe some riddles. That's how I do them in interviews. I certainly ask a lot of that, and certainly my team has found a lot of success in bringing a little bit of that gamification, a little bit of that fun into our day to day.
Amazing. So, Natalie, what keeps your team engaged and motivated to be a part of the organization?
It's a tough one, right? Because and especially when you're a managed security services provider, like Trish mentioned, I guess apparently going to the bank is a lot less exciting. But it's a grind. It can be, right? It's a SOC. And so how do you keep people excited and engaged and motivated? And I want to get up tomorrow and do that thing again. It's a really tough one, but I think that the most important thing that leaders can do, especially, is support their people. Back them up, have conversations with them, understand what it is that they want to do next. Where are they going? And I don't mean 5 years from now, because nobody knows what's 5 years from now in cyber. I mean, like 6 months from now. What do you want to do? Where do you want to go? What do you want to accomplish? How can I help you do that? Because even if you're an L1 right now and your goal is to get into threat hunting, fantastic. Let's figure out, what does that look like and what's that timeline? And I'm here to back you up and support you. And as long as you're showing up and making it happen, I'm here to make it happen for you. And I think people have to feel supported, and they have to get paid, right? Like, I mean, that is a big deal. You're not going to talk to anybody that isn't going to talk about salaries in cyber, but and give them the support that they need, and help them build a sense of community, and get them engaged with competition is a great example. Absolutely. Even if and I've seen it too, even if you think you're not competitive, you slap down a goal in front of somebody, and next thing you know. But yeah, it is a difficult task, and especially in the environment that we're in right now across the world. But I think most importantly, put your people first, and support them, and make sure that they're getting what they need.
Amazing. So I'm hearing things like gamification, making sure that you're able to offer the stability, making sure that you're able to support them when they really need your support. But Sarah, do you want to add anything else to this in terms of retaining talent? What other things or other tips you'll have for people on that?
So yeah, absolutely. I've observed that if what people are doing is helping them in any way, it's adding value to themselves, and they're aware that what they're doing is adding value to the organization they're supporting, that combination of it's giving me something and what I'm doing matters to somebody, that's a very strong feeling to want to come to work or wake up for work every single day, because you wake up with a sense of purpose. And that's just it. Whatever you do, it has to have some sort of purpose behind it. If you do something where you think this is not making a difference to anyone, you're going to lose interest eventually. And if you think this is not helping me grow as a person, you're going to lose interest eventually, because there's no growth for yourself or whoever you're helping.
Amazing. Okay, so I know we are at the end of our conversation. I am just looking at the chat window just to see if there are any questions that we could not able to address. So I know Trish did address the point about soft skills. Now there's another question which is a bit related to this, which relates to DevOps. So the question is, DevOps and IT teams tend to work in silos. With continuous deployment, where does DevSOC fit in within a SOC environment?
Right in the middle, in my opinion. Connected to everybody, because there is no point for you to go out there and create some amazing thing that I don't care about. Yeah. They got to be right smack in the middle, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I mean, often in like SOC teams, I've seen a DevOps team playing a really important role, especially in terms of forensics and reverse engineering. But Trish, any feedback on that?
Yeah, I know that a lot of our peers in the Canadian banking industry, at least, have really focused on areas of collaboration such as fusion centers and things like that. Collaboration is a slippery thing, and it's really difficult to embed that into your organization, or like frankly force it. It's really difficult to force something like work with these people. And so it is certainly challenging to do that. And how do we facilitate that conversation, making sure that this is not a critical space of discussion? I'm not here to tear apart your stuff, right? I'm here to look at it critically with you, and we're going to go on this journey together. And I think culturally driving that from the bottom up will really help solidify and remove some of those walls that people have built around themselves.
Amazing, amazing. So I think we're at the end of a conversation. Uh, I'd like to thank everybody for sharing your perspective. Natalie, Trish, and Sarah, really interesting points. There's a lot that I'm taking away from today's discussion. I learned a lot from the discussion, but thanks a lot for sharing your perspectives. And probably we'll meet again virtually on some other discussion. And I'd like to thank the audience for sharing their questions and participating in the discussion. So hashtag we are cyber. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Have a
we'll
great
hang
week,
on for a
everyone.
few minutes.